Hello, everyone. It's Heather. I'm so excited for my second show. Last week was so fun being able to hang out with my family and just talk about some of the pieces of me that really got me to where I am today. So it's Together with Heather, Wednesday nights on Native Roots Radio, and I'm really excited about our show today. We have some amazing women joining us. As many of you know, I've been recently elected to the Minnesota House, and so I could not have done that without my campaign manager. I think that we need to highlight the work that they do. So my campaign manager is joining me, along with some of the other phenomenal women that I'm entering into this journey with, and some of their supports in their campaign. So they'll be on later. So if you start thinking of some questions that you maybe want to ask, get them ready. You can put comments down below. We will be watching them. We're here to have a really candid conversation. Again, I kind of always say this isn't a political show. This is just a real life conversation. And so we'll get to that a little bit later. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to kick off the show with our education corner. As many of you know, education is something that I'm extremely passionate about. It's something that played a huge role in my life, kind of both negatively and positively. And I just feel like we have to have these conversations in our community. And so today I'm actually bringing a guest along with me. I'm bringing Sinkees Leinen with me, who is our interim director for admission over at NDSU. Sinkees, you want to join us? Hello.
Hello, Heather.
I'm so glad that you're here. It's so exciting. As we kind of talked, some of the role that I do is really just outreach. And we figured this is an amazing way to reach a lot of people. And so one of the things I want to start with is just tell us about you, your role, kind of what education and higher ed means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thanks for having me, Heather, and congrats on your new role as you embark on that in the very near future. But name is Sinkees. I currently work at NDSU. NDSU has been my professional home for almost 7 years. Educational background, I grew up I identify as African American and Hispanic, but my grandfather remarried into a Native American family. And so I was very much brought up with Native American culture, exposure to a lot of customs and norms within the culture. So I like to say that I am, I guess, an honorary Native American, though it's not technically my race or something I identify with ethnically. But I grew up in Minot, North Dakota. I attended a Catholic school throughout my elementary and high school years, and went to UND for college and had a great experience there. Education has always been something that's been an expectation, and I know that that's not the reality for a lot of students that I work with in my current role. So it's kind of a given that I'd go on to college. So I need to be mindful of that mind frame as I'm working with students, knowing that that's not always the path that gets students to college. So after I went to UND, I decided to go into the professional world. I worked at UND for a little bit and went on to Minot State, and then decided to pursue my graduate degree with Nebraska Lincoln. So got my degree in educational administration, and then that's what brought me to NDSU. So currently serving as the interim director, work very closely with, obviously with you, Heather, on lots of different efforts, but really excited to talk more about some of the efforts we're doing to be more inclusive as an institution and from a recruitment lens.
Yeah, I think because we have to be honest that if anybody kind of knows what's going on with NDSU and just kind of in our nation in the last year, we have to be really mindful of inclusion and being really intentional in inclusion, not only for our recruitment piece, but also for our staff. One thing I will say is working with you, Sinkees, has been really important for me because representation matters. And when we see leaders of minority backgrounds, that really says something a lot. And I think having you as an interim director, our directors team in general in the Office of Admission is pretty diverse. And I think that matters. But do you want to highlight just a couple of the things that we've been working on and what some of our goals are to be more inclusive in our recruitment?
Absolutely. Yeah, some of the things that come to mind, and really this speaks to our mission. As an office, we're all about expanding access to education, and to me, access has a direct correlation to inclusion. And so when I think about access and inclusive recruitment, I think of some of the admission processes that we've put into place over the last few years, such as first and foremost, waiving our application fee. We know that sometimes financial barriers could prohibit students from being able to apply to an institution, therefore being able to enroll. And so a couple years ago, we received support to permanently waive our application fee so that we could reduce that barrier and allow students to be considered in the admission process. And another example I think of is um, due to the pandemic, which is unfortunate that we have to say that, but because of the pandemic, a lot of students weren't able to take a standardized test, either the ACT or SAT. And so we've received support to waive that requirement in the admission process, which has then too opened up doors for students to be able to apply and not have to have a certain test score. And studies show there's many out there that say underrepresented populations, minority populations struggle with that test, and it doesn't always reflect their abilities to succeed in college. So we no longer require that as part of the admission, and it's been a positive change for us, and I hope that we can continue to do that permanently. Those are two big examples I can think of, but other ones include self-reported admission, not requiring transcripts for students to be considered, and obviously the work that you've been doing, Heather, in the last year and a half, getting more involved in the community and being more present. I think awareness is where it starts. And oftentimes we think about recruitment of recruiting just juniors and seniors in high school, but it really does start early. And I commend you, Heather, for getting us into that mindset of starting as young as sixth, seventh, eighth grade to really expose ourselves with younger minds so that they can set goals before it's too late, to maybe make NDSU or any college a reality. So that's another thing that we're working on, not something that I would say that we're perfect at, but it's something that we're striving to be better at in the near future. And then also working across our campus just to better promote the services we have for students. Oftentimes, Heather, you're quoted by saying we need to build a home at our institution, a welcoming home, in order to recruit students to our home and open up the doors to our home. So that requires our staff to really look internally as individuals, but also as a team to like really know what we're talking about and to be comfortable talking about all topics and not to assume that every student has the same needs and the same interests. So working with our multicultural programs office, our counseling office, our student organizations, to name a few, are things that we've taken strides toward doing, but we still have a lot of work to do. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what we accomplish during my time as interim director.
Yeah, well, I keep saying we can invite people to the house.
Yeah.
If we don't build a house that is created to support all of our students to be successful, like it's really hard to invite those people to the house. So, well, thank you for joining me. We will be seeing a lot of Sinkees. She's agreed to kind of be a part of this conversation. I can talk about education every week if I want to, but it's always nice to bring other perspectives in. She'll be giving some tips and tricks year round. There is a cycle when it comes to applying for school and different things that are really helpful to know. So either her or other people in our admission team will be joining us. So thank you, Sinkees.
Thanks so much, Heather. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so we're going to move into something else that's really fun. So as some of you maybe know, I really love tea and I love mugs. And I feel like in a world that you can't read what's on t-shirts right now, we're going to be doing some giveaways because that's fun, right? Giveaways are fun and mugs are fun and stickers are fun. And so we've created a mug. And it's got Peggy, Mary, Jamie, and Heather. These are the 4 Indigenous women who are in leadership in our state right now. Peggy Flanagan is our Lieutenant Governor. Mary Kunish is Senate-elect. Jamie Becker-Finn has been in the House, and then me. And I think that when it comes to our Indigenous culture, the number 4 is really powerful. And I think having women in different leadership roles from Indigenous backgrounds will just give a really nice perspective, to our leadership across the state. So here's what we're going to do. If you can share out this live and make comments below, we'll go through and we'll pick somebody and then we'll reach out to you and get an address and you will get an Indigenous Women Lead mug. That's exciting. And then we also have, because we're on Native Roots Radio, they have a t-shirt that says resist. I would show it to you, but I just wore it and it's in the wash. Once Together with Heather Facebook reaches 500 likes, we'll be doing a giveaway with one of those t-shirts as well. So make sure that you head over, like our Facebook page, share it out. We just want to make sure that these conversations are being seen kind of across the whole region, the whole nation, and Turtle Island, so that hopefully we can be inspiring to other people. So let's move on to the exciting part of the conversation. As many of you know, I just ran and won my House seat for 4A here in Moorhead, but I definitely did not do that alone. My campaign manager was phenomenal. I think she was more than a campaign manager. She became a really good friend of mine. She became a mentor. Were able to kind of talk about things. I had major surgery in the middle of my campaign, so she also like brought goodies over for my kids. So let's bring Nicole on because I can't wait to talk with you a little bit.
Hi.
Hello. There she is. Got in the shirt and the lipstick. I love it. I always have to tell this story. Nicole's probably sick of me telling it, but so when we started the campaign, she was in her little Zoom corner because we moved to a very virtual world, and her background was very boring. Like, like I say that right now because mine's pretty boring. So I kept giving her like kind of some crap about it. And it wasn't until Peggy Flanagan joined us on a call that you decided to like fancy up your corner with your plants and such. But
I love Peggy. I don't know what you want me to say. Inviting Peggy into my Zoom corner, it's got to look good.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not mad. I mean, I'll just tease you about it for a long time, but I'm not mad. So let's just chat a little bit. Let's talk about how we even became a team. I feel like it was really organic. I feel like it wasn't pressure. It just kind of naturally happened. So you tell your side of the story.
Well, do we want to start with the elevator?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it all started in the elevator. Every good story starts in an elevator, right?
Every good story. Okay. So it was July of 2019. Yeah. I have no sense of time anymore after this pandemic, but I think that approximately. And so it was the day that the Moorhead City Council was voting on the resolution to have Indigenous Peoples Day in Moorhead. And Heather had put out a call for people to come, show up, and support. And although we didn't really know each other that well at that point, we were acquainted, but but I had heard it. I thought this is a great thing, and I want to go. And I went and I took some pictures. And then the city of Moorhead, the city council passed that resolution. And after that was done, then we both happened to just get on the elevator at the same time. And Heather said, hey, Nicole, I'm going to run for school board next year, and I need you to be my campaign manager. Mm-hmm. And I said, do you want to tell them what I said?
Well, first of all, I kind of voluntold her that's like, I think that you need to be my campaign manager. And she responded like right in the eyes. And she says, okay, I'm pretty good at it. I was like, all right, cool. Well, we'll just be in touch. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how it rolled out. School board rolled into running for House, mm-hmm. which was never on either of our radars. Mm-hmm. This is the biggest campaign that you've been a part of. Mm-hmm. And we navigated it through a pandemic, through a lot of social unrest, through mm-hmm. massive knee surgery, I feel like it was I think I had like 2 major quarantines, just all of these things. And so I think in a really public space, as I always do, I just really appreciate you. And I appreciate the work that you did. This win, I did not do this alone. You were a genius when it comes to like our marketing and just some of that strategy, and really how to really get us through the primary was the first big hurdle. What's one of the biggest takeaways? I know that you've talked about like you kind of had a vision of what this election and who the outcome candidate would be, especially being like female. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and why it was so important for you to be involved?
Yeah. So I had a conversation, I think that it was around the beginning of 2018, I feel like it was, with several, the DFL, the Minnesota Democratic House Caucus, was doing kind of a listening tour of Minnesota. And so they had like a staff person and then our area legislators, and just wanting to hear from Democrats, like, tell us what you think about what's going on. And I was like, I was still really mad about the 2016 election. And one of the things I said was, we need more women in the legislature. We have about a third of the women of the people in this Minnesota legislature are women. And why is it not 50% or more? And the staff person from the Minnesota House Caucus said, well, the DFL already has 50% representation. So what else do you want us to do? And I said, why is 50% the limit? Like, why can't we have 100% women from, the legislature is not 50% women. So there's no reason why the DFL has to stop at 50. I mean, it's not enough women. And so at that moment, I made a decision. When our current legislator decided that he was not going to run again, I wanted a woman to fill that seat. And so, because I think it makes such a difference. Studies have shown that women work across the aisle better. And not only just with other women, but they're able to work with people that are different from them more easily than men are, and more legislation gets passed when there are more women in a legislature. There's lots of data on this, that this is a real benefit to people to have more women in legislatures. And so I had decided I'm going to do every single thing that I can do to make sure a woman gets in that seat. And so when that seat became open, I started to sort of ask around, some other people. And I asked you, hey, have you thought about this instead of school board? And, this is where we landed. And so it turned out that every single thing I could do included being your campaign manager. And so here we are.
Yeah. Well, and Nicole was one of 20 women in this community that reached out. And I think that says a lot about the power of women supporting women. And that's bigger than just in the campaign world. I think in general, women should be supporting other women in their businesses, in their endeavors, in any of the things that we want to do. And so that's a great segue into the rest of our guests. So if we want to start bringing everybody else in, I am so excited because I also agree that women in leadership are very powerful. Just because it's a different lens of life, it's a different reality. And so I am really excited because we get to come in with a phenomenal crew of individuals on the DFL side. I think we have an amazing class that's coming in. We're full of diversity. We're full of backgrounds. We're full of different geographical areas. We're part of the LGBTQ community. We are awesome. And I think everybody needs to know that. And so what I've done is I've invited a couple of our rep-elects to join me. So I have Liz Bolden, Jess Hansen, and Athena Hollins. If you don't know them, you should and you will, because these women are going to be doing some major things. And then we have Sam, who is the campaign manager for Athena, just to kind of talk about, as candidates, we don't do this alone. And when women support women through some of those roles, it's so powerful. And I know that Liz and Jess both had women on their team as well. And I think that there's just this space of comfort in that. I don't think I'm alone in saying that we get challenged in different ways. We get asked different questions. We have different expectations of us because we're women. And so let's just do a quick round of intros. Tell us who you are, where you're from. I would say a fun fact, but I feel like all of the meetings that we've been on, everybody wants a fun fact. So I'm not going to do that to you, but just share something that you feel like is important to share. So let's start with you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for not making us share a fun fact, because I am over sharing a fun fact. But so I am Liz Bolden, recently elected to Minnesota House Seat 25B, which is Northern Rochester. My background is that I am a mom of 3 and I am a nurse and an educator. And just in thinking about women supporting women, as I think about my journey and how I ended up here, which is not a place I expected to end up holding public office. But one of the main reasons I even felt like I could do this is because of other women. And so being, I volunteered very heavily on a House campaign in 2018. And that played a huge role in my decision to even thinking about running for this seat. So it's powerful. So happy to be here.
Yay, I'm happy you're here. Let's just back up a minute. That she talked about, she's in healthcare. She like teaches nurses in the middle of a pandemic. So if you want to talk about grit and resilience and good timing and why we need leaders like this, it's because, I mean, she's in the healthcare field in the middle of a pandemic. You know what I mean? You worked your butt off to get here. And I'm so excited for you to really bring that lens of life into this role. And also, fun fact, me and Liz are going to be staying at the same place. So we kind of get to be like roommates in the cities. So everybody who's in the cities is probably super jealous of us. So let's move over to Jess Hansen. One of my favorite kind of things about her is, and it throws everybody off, and I love that you put it in your two truths and a lie, is that you're a realist, and that you just come like into conversations being just very honest and real and blunt, and there's not a lot of fluffing around the bushes, you know what I mean, like in the conversations with you, and I really appreciate that about you. So introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, where you're at, anything else you want to share.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me tonight. I've been so excited running this year because there's so many awesome women, and we have more women in the House than we've had before. So I'm very stoked about that and looking forward to getting the opportunity to serve. We will be close office mates. We'll be down the hall from each other. So that is something to look forward to if you get a chance to stop by the Capitol. I will be representing all of the District 56A, which is the city of Savage and the northwest part of Burnsville, just down here south of the river. And I decided to run for office because I believe in my heart of hearts that politics is how we care about each other. And I think there's a special role that women play in that process of making sure that the kind of politics we leave for our children, the kind of politics we use to care for the greatest generation that came ahead of us and taught us what we know, and the kind of politics that we want to see our kids engage in when they get to this place. I think there's just, like I said, a really important role that we play there. Like Liz, I worked pretty heavily on a House campaign in 2018. And so when I found out that my current representative wasn't running again, I knew that we had to fight to keep this seat. This is a purple district, historically swings back and forth. And so we worked really hard and won by 3.5% here. So that was a pretty exciting journey. My campaign manager is Becca Bailey. For those of you that haven't had a chance to meet her yet, she does a lot of work around the state. We went to grad school together. So shout out Maple, cohort 27, woot woot, if you're watching. And so we knew each other pretty well when we stepped up and decided she was going to run my campaign. And she is fierce. So she's a stage manager by background. She's worked with Women's March. She's worked with Little People of America and a ton of other organizations. And so I'm really excited to see not just like what we continue to do together, but where her career goes from here, what she decides to do. So always making the ask of women like her and any others watching. We generally have to be asked a whole bunch of times to run for office. Like, what is it, like 8 times? So will you run for office? 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 Will you run? Will you run? Because we need more women in the legislature. So this is going to be a really great freshman class, and I can't wait to see all that we do. So thanks again for having me, Heather.
Sorry, my 4-year-old just decided to join the party. I guess this is the reality, right? That we're like moms in all of the middle of all of this. So we might have a special guest shortly. Okay, I love that you said your campaign manager did stuff with the Women's March, because so did mine. My campaign manager did that too. She helped organize some things. And I think that's true, is like we're all just doers in our community, and that just means so much. And so we have another candidate campaign manager duo. So let's bring Athena and Sam on, because I want to ask y'all some questions. Athena is awesome. I connected with her on the campaign trail. She helped make some phone calls for my campaign, which is, I feel like, just this different type of love and compassion for each other. People want to get on the phones with you. but also just I feel like we have a lot in common. We're minority women trying to run. She wears lipstick much better than I do. I'm trying to learn that art from her, especially in the Zoom world. So Athena, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and then introduce Sam?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me, Heather, and I will get you on point with the lipstick. Don't worry, it's coming. Um, like I said, my name is Athena Hollins. I am the representative-elect for District 66B, which is in St. Paul, so in the capital city. And I had kind of a long, strange path on my campaign trail. I was actually running against, oh, hi. I was actually running against a incumbent DFLer and, decided that we need better representation in our district, which is a really diverse district, and also more progressive representation because you can be a DFLer and still not be necessarily as progressive as we would like it to be. So that's what prompted me to run. And so this is kind of telling in this whole progress with with Sam as my campaign manager. So Sam joined my team early on as a volunteer helping me do fundraising work and stayed on with me. When I didn't get the DFL endorsement, I dropped out of the race for about a month. And then the George Floyd murder happened. And that prompted me to get back into the race because I decided that there was not going to be the right time to do this. Like as a queer woman of color, there is no right time. There's not going to be an opportunity where somebody's saying, we want you to come run in this district. Like the chances of that were so slim, and that I really just needed to step up for my community to make sure that those voices were being heard. And so I got back into the race. But in the meantime, my original campaign manager had gone on to somebody else's campaign. And so thankfully, blessedly, Sam stepped up and became my campaign manager. And she has just been such a godsend, so amazing. And it is so freeing to have a female campaign manager who understands, you women who are on this call know that there's so many things you face on the campaign trail that are just like blatantly sexist, and that you have to deal with a smile. And it's just nice to be able to go back to somebody else and be like, am I nuts? Or was that dude just a jerk? Like, was I being mansplained to? And to have somebody be like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about, it was fantastic. It was so good to have that perspective there, and somebody being like, no, just be you. Like, you can just be you, and that's okay, and you don't need to apologize for it. And that's really what Sam did for me.
Yeah. And I also got connected through Athena originally, since we're talking about women and women in Minnesota, through Women Winning, the organization that endorses pro-choice women and endorsed you all. And I just loved working with Athena. I was coming off of a coordinator position as well with Women Winning. And I wanted to still stay involved through the 2020 race. So this opportunity to step up and work with Athena was an amazing experience for me. And I just can't wait to continue to support other pro-choice women and women of color who want to run in the future.
Well, okay, so I love this part about the story that I love is that we didn't get complacent here. Like, right? Like there's always that, there's no term limits for House members. People have been serving for many, many, many years. And I think that there's value in people stepping up, kind of, even if nothing else, kind of challenging each other. Iron sharpens iron. We need to be able to challenge people and not get complacent and just like, oh, so-and-so running again. So we'll just keep doing that. And I think people can be phenomenal legislators, but I do think that sometimes our community just deserves options. That was the reason why I stepped up, because when my current legislator retired, at the time it was like, oh, look, just more white men stepping up. And not that some white men don't do a great job. I just think that my community deserved more. And so I think it took a lot of courage for you, Athena, to step up and challenge kind of the status quo and just what we're comfortable with. And I hope that what that does is it creates this opportunity for other community members to see the value in themselves. And thanks, Sam, for being here. Athena, I'm going to have you kind of hide for a minute. If we can bring Nicole back on, I want to have a conversation with campaign managers, because I feel like these are the behind the scene powerhouse queens that do so much work for us. And a lot of it goes unseen. You can bring Nicole back on. But I want to just kind of run through like what does a campaign manager do? I feel like some people really want to get involved. They just don't know how to get involved. What kind of skill sets maybe do you have? What are some things, like I know with Nicole, a lot of it was our outreach and our timing and the numbers and knowing what our win number was. So Sam, just give me a little bit of like, what does it take to be a good campaign manager?
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to house races and more local campaigns, it's really important to just be okay with not knowing how to do everything. Like Athena mentioned, you know, she needed a new campaign manager after hopping back in the race, and I was already on her team. But I figured I have the time, I have the commitment, I have a decent enough background working on campaigns for about 1.5 years previously. I have a bachelor's degree in political science. So I figured, hey, I'm going to learn along the way. We're going to do this. Having a good handle on finances is probably one of the most important things that you will be dealing with. And sometimes you'll have a reliable finance team to help you, mostly just on a volunteer basis. Sometimes you won't. In my case, I was the volunteer, but then I stepped up and became the campaign manager as well. There's a lot of juggling, but I think one of the most important things too is just, you know, trying to make sure your candidate doesn't get overwhelmed, being there for them whenever they need, whether it's just via text. Obviously, it was all mostly virtually, you know, this summer and throughout the campaign. But just being open to anything and staying transparent with your candidate is probably one of the most important things.
I think that you mentioned something that like supporting the candidate is something that for me was the biggest component. Like Nicole did a lot strategically and a lot of background stuff. But at the end of the day, kind of like what Athena was saying, is there would be times still that I call Nicole and I was like, you will never guess what just happened. And she literally reels me back in. Sometimes it's even like, just take the rest of the night off. It's okay. Like, we're fine. And so that emotional support, I think, is something that is really powerful, because you literally become best friends with your campaign manager. Me and Nicole used to kind of laugh, but it was very true, is the fact that in my phone, Nicole passed my mom and who I talk to on a regular basis. Like, she was way up there in the ranks of like who I talk to very frequently. And so, Nicole, what are some things that you feel like skill set was really important? What are some things that you feel like if somebody would be interested in maybe stepping up and saying, hey, I maybe want to be a campaign manager, what are some things that would be really helpful for them to know?
I think all of what Sam said, but also for me, I have worked on campaigns before, but I'm not a professional. My day job is that I am in marketing. And so those are the skills that I brought to the table. And I really approach this as we're marketing a product. And we had 3 different stages of the campaign. We had the party endorsement in the spring, and then the primary in the summer, and then the general election in the fall. So each one of those required kind of a different strategy and a different set of voter contacts and voter data information and all that stuff. So that was one thing that the skills that I brought were not political science skills or previous working, you know, being a campaign manager before, although I had done that, but not at this level. But it really was understanding how to reach voters and then how to get them, not just to say, yeah, I'll vote for Heather, but to actually go vote for Heather. That's, I think that not candidates don't always focus on that part, is people will say, yes, I will vote for you. Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. What time are you going to go vote? Are you going to vote early? Are you going to vote by mail? Are you going to go on the day? Do you know what time of the day? Do you know where your polling location is? Like, it's not enough for people to just say, yes, I'll do that. You really have to do more than it feels like you should have to do sometimes to make sure people actually take that step of voting. So I think those are the things that I would say are useful information for people to have if they're thinking about becoming a campaign manager in the future.
And one of the things that you have experience in is you have worked elections in the past. And so that knowledge of just knowing, like, how do you vote? And I feel like a lot of our outreach was education. It was around, like, it wasn't a lot about in-depth policy. It was we decided to, very early on, we decided we were not going to door knock. Everything was going to be virtual. Nicole really helped with, the MailChimp and all of our social media and doing all of these things. But then it really turned into this, like, get to know me as a human and educate you on how your voice matters. And so that was really powerful. Well, thank you both for the work that you do. And I know the work that you will do in the future will be really powerful. Nicole, do you want to kind of share? I didn't do any of it. Nicole kind of documented some tips and tricks. Do you want to talk about that just real briefly?
Yeah, I will drop it in the chat. I wrote an ebook after the primary. It's not updated for post general election, but after the primary, I wrote an ebook on how to run and win a local campaign in a pandemic, because it definitely is different than in a regular year. There's so many things that you want to be able to do that you can't do in a pandemic that you would normally do. Hi, Elliot. And so I wrote that. I will put that. I will go put that on the comments of the Together with Heather page, the link to it, and so people that, if anybody's interested, they can read the book. It's short.
Yeah, and I think some of it's relevant to just running in general. I feel like there's a lot of this stuff that you just don't know until you learn it, and I'm sure that it would be helpful for anybody. So thank you both. We can't wait to see what else you all do. Maybe one day you'll step up and run for something else. Who knows? Let's bring our candidates back on, because we're going to get kind of real about some of the things we experience. Or I guess we're not candidates. Now we're like rep-elects. It's so weird to say that, right? Like, I always feel like that's so weird to say. But let's talk to our rep-elects about just the reality of being a female in the campaign world. I know that we had started, I don't even know who actually started the group. I was just added to it at one point, but it was just a group of female candidates from across the state running for all kinds of things. And it was literally like our venting board. And I think that played a huge role in, one, just connecting with other female candidates. Like Athena, you said, we're not alone in this craziness and what some people say to us. But also one of the things we talked about was we can't wait until there is a day that we can actually talk about the sexism that is built into this structure. And ladies, I think today is a very good day to talk about that. So if there's different things that any of you want to share about an experience that you had, whether it was on the phone or whether it was other individuals in your community that kind of challenged you as a female. I know for me, there was always like, well, you're just so young and you have kids and like, are you sure you really want to do it? And every single time in my mind, okay, first of all, I'm almost 40. So I've been working in my professional career for like 20 years. I don't feel like I'm too young to be at the table. And also, do you ask a man about their kids and how they're going to do this and still be a parent? Like, is that just something that people ask us because we're moms? But let's just kind of go down the list. We'll start with Liz and then Athena and then Jess. Share a story or kind of an example of the reality that we got as females.
I think so. I would just say I so appreciated that message board of female candidates. For one, it's sort of a a strange club to be in, is, you know, not a lot of people have the experience of being a candidate. And then it very much is different for women, I feel like. And so I really appreciated that. Some of my favorite times as I look back through the campaign, and something I treasure the most is the relationships I got out of it, and started building throughout the campaign. So I think just about, you know, some of those things that drove me crazy at the time are, you know, comments on social media that, you know, people feel like they have free reign to make comments that, you know, are not about policy or, you know, your qualifications that are relevant to the role. But, you know, just random comments about, as you said, about, you know, being a mom, or being too young, or being too this or too that, or appearance, all of those things that are really irrelevant. I think too, as you know, I did not door knock either. So it was really the entirety of the campaign was phone calls. And so through some of those phone calls, just being dismissed by some people, to be honest, just of not you know, being viewed as you know, again, enough of this or enough of that, or the, you know, typical you know, white male candidate that we might see. And so definitely I think it looks different for women, and I really value having the support of other women. And what I will say is, so Jess spoke about, you know, as women, we do need to be asked over and over and over sometimes to step up to run, because I think we, you know, there are studies also showing that in terms of like applying for jobs, women who are very much qualified overthink it and do not apply for jobs because they wonder, are we qualified? Are we not? And men apply for, you know, jobs that they are not remotely qualified for. They just have that confidence and do it. And so there's studies to back that up. And so I think that is relevant in this space too. And so if you are thinking about it, do it. You don't have to be a policy expert. You absolutely, I think if you're thinking about it, do it. Talk to other women who have experience, and just get some women in your circle to back you up, just to be that person, because there will be those days where you think, oh my gosh, I don't know, what have I done? And I don't know if I can do this. So get somebody in your corner who can remind you, yes, you absolutely can do this, because you can. That's what I would say.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I think that's spot on. I guess in my experience, you know, from the very start, I had people who told me that because of the way I talked, I wouldn't be elected, that I didn't sound Minnesota enough, which is fine. I'm not from Minnesota, so, you know, what are you going to do? You can't change the way I talk. I had somebody tell me that I wasn't allowed to wear hoop earrings anymore, which was like devastating to me. And then I was like, nope, screw it. I'm still going to wear hoop earrings. I don't care what you say. So I feel, and those were comments from women. So like, you know, some of our own worst enemies are people from our own group, right? Like we are our own worst enemy, because we have internalized the patriarchy, like not to get too far into like how I feel about it, but like we've internalized it. And that's the reason why somebody can sound presidential and somebody cannot sound presidential. Because really what you mean is, do you sound like an old white guy? And no, I don't sound like an old white guy, and neither do any of us. And that's fine. What we have to do is change that notion that that's what it sounds like to be a politician. We have to completely turn that on its head. And I think the best way to do that is, especially in local politics, getting to know people, getting to talk to them about the issues, and like having more substantive conversations with them, so that it's not just about what I look like or what I sound like. It's about like what things matter to you, and those are the same things that matter to me. And you can trust me that I'm going to represent those things when I go to the Capitol. I think my most entertaining moment of sexism and weirdness was an online ad that we did on Facebook, where somebody commented that he doesn't know if he would vote for me, but he'd definitely like to wrestle me. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I think I commented like, yeah, and I'd kick your ass or something like that. But I was like, I don't know how to take that. Like, I guess I'm supposed to be offended by it, but I was like, I'm not offended by it because I probably would take you. That's too bad for you.
That's so weird. Like, I just don't understand it. And I think that like us having the courage to step up and run, and then talk about the experience, hopefully helps somebody else. All right, Jess, your turn.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this conversation up, because I do think that there are a lot of stories that will go untold. And I believe that storytelling is how we change the world. It's how we challenge the status quo, and it's how we write the script for a new future that we want to create, right? And so I believe very strongly that sharing these stories is as powerful as it will be for the next women that run behind us, or even for ourselves and each other next time we run, because it doesn't stop and it's exhausting, a lot of the stuff. So I think some of the stuff we've talked about, so ugly social media comments, I think one of the times that sticks out for me is I was having a really great conversation with somebody, and I was really excited about the direction the conversation was going. And then at the end of the conversation, the person said, because we did a lot of phone banking. We weren't in person, we weren't door knocking. So we're talking on the phone. And the person said, "But are you hot? I'd support you, but are you hot?" Like, how do you answer that? Right here, I've been in my kind of, professional self, this whole phone call, feeling like I was making progress, feeling like I was working to earn somebody's vote. And then just to be minimized down to something that pre-politics I was already minimized down to, And so I think it's been an interesting experience, because each time I get a comment like that, I become stronger and stronger. They roll off easier and easier every time. And so that's the good news, is that even though it's hard when you step up to run, yes, these things will happen. And each time it's almost like you're the oil, it's the water. It just beads up and falls off more and more every time, right? I had a lot of comments that were, "Well, I'll vote for you if you let me take you out on a date. I'll vote for you if you'll marry me." I campaigned on being a single mom, and then would get messages from people that were like, "Are you single?" And I was like, well, somebody's not listening. So, not a great way if you're trying to, approach or date somebody, to like not listen to what they said most of the campaign. And so that's the part that always baffled me. It was never, a lot of times people are, "Well, I'm genuinely interested." No, you're not. And you guys, whoever's out there that does that kind of thing, you can stop telling us you are, because we've gotten 100 of them. You're not the first. You won't be the last. So just change the story that men want to tell about themselves. Change that story by doing things different. That would be my advice to if there are any men watching that are curious about how to do this, tell your friends, bring it to the locker room. Talk about it, because it's not women's job to stop this. It is not our job to have to be on the defensive all the time. And in a position where we're doing something that less than 1% of the population will even attempt to do, the gall it takes to say some of those things to us never ceases to amaze me. So this is a men's problem. I hope the men address it. Because as you can hear, this is something we shouldn't have to deal with on the campaign trail when we're trying to make the world a better place, when we're trying to use politics to care for each other, and we're trying to lean on each other to, like I said before, create the world that our children, their children, our parents, grandparents, that all of us deserve to live in.
That is so true, though, because we need to my mind frame always goes to, if you're a dad raising daughters, do you want somebody to talk to your daughter like that? You know what I mean? Like, there were a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean like on a weekly basis. And Nicole can kind of testify with that with me. And they would say like the dumbest things, like refer to sexual acts in the sense that that's the only way I'm going to be able to pass bills. Or again, like referring to, how do I look? Well, you're pretty, I'll vote for you. Like that. I'm also smart. I'm very committed to this community. I've worked a lot and, representing our community in different capacities. Like, but also like, I feel like I worried a lot about like what I was going to wear in pictures. And to the point that my very first campaign picture is I'm wearing like a mock neck turtleneck. So I was like, I just do not want there to be like any opportunity for anybody to say anything, you know, about me or sexualize anything about me in this campaign. But I think that as women, we've always been taught that we're less than men. I mean, it's part of the reason why in marriage between a man and a woman, the woman gives up her name and takes the man's name. Like there's this piece of it that we have to start to change that narrative. And I think that teaching our women and our young girls that you are strong, you are powerful, your voice matters, you belong here, but also teaching our boys that it is okay to support a strong female, and it is okay to support the women in your life to reach these bigger goals. And so let's just go around because we're kind of wrapping the show up to an end. Is that I think that we can all agree that we want more women at this table with us, whether it's at school board, whether it's in city council or commission work or volunteering or running marches in your community. Like, you matter. Every single female out there, every single minority, every single underserved, underheard individual, your voice matters, and we need you at this table. So let's each just kind of go around and, you know, really encourage people that this isn't easy. I mean, we're not trying to sugarcoat it. This is not an easy task, but it's worth it if you genuinely care about the change in your community. So we'll start with Jess, Liz, and then Athena. Go ahead.
I was like really closely paying attention to what you're saying and trying to fight back tears over here. So what did you say that you want me to start with?
Talk about like encouraging our community and other women to really step up and why we all think that that's so important.
I was like looking in my camera at behind me. I have a wall of posters. And these are all things that a woman or a group of women have given to me. And so I was just remembering like this one right here, how important that is to me, that the power lies within the people. The world is run by people who show up. And if we don't show up, that's going to continue to be the status quo. That's why I stepped up to run for office. I saw who was showing up. I saw who was doing this work, and I left very unsatisfied. And I like to believe that I get what I want. And I want my community to have a representative that cares about what happens in their lives, that cares about their children the same way I care about my own, that cares about their parents like I care about my own, that cares about the future of our clean water and the dump that's been unlined since the 70s across the street from my house and what that means for everybody down the Mississippi. Those are the type of people. If you care about those things, you are exactly made for this work. And that is your calling. Whether it's to be a campaign manager or to be the candidate yourself, we have to be that change that we want to see in the world and continue to express that through action, by using our power, by conquering our fears, by coming together. And I'll never forget, Heather, when I added you to that group, because we met at a different support group. And I left that support group going, I want her in our group. She needs to come to our group, because knowing that the kind of support you need as women is unique. And it is, I think, best when you surround yourself with that in addition to other kinds of support, but you have to have that sisterhood. And we're here for you. So whoever's stepping up to run, thinking about running, considering running, message us, reach out. We're going to support you in this, and you belong in this work. So go sleep on that, dream it into fruition, and manifest that, because it just takes the desire and the will to say, how bad do I want this? Not for yourself, but for your community, for your future, for your kids, and for your legacy. So step up and run if you get the chance.
I agree with every word of that. And I would say, again, thank you to Heather for bringing us on for this really fun conversation and an important conversation. One that really needs to be had, because it is so important. As has been said, again, going back to research and data, there is data and evidence to show that when women lead, the outcomes are better for everyone, not just for women, but for everyone. And so more is accomplished, and there is a significant gain for everyone. And so again, I just would go back to, if you are thinking about what it might look like for you, you can do this. And so reach out to others with questions. I think I feel comfortable saying reach out to any of us. We would be happy to chat with people more about what the experience is like. And although we sort of talked about, I mean, there are challenges for sure. And there are times when probably all of us wondered, what have I gotten myself into? But it is worth it, and it is possible. And you can absolutely do it. And so the other thing I would say is, I feel like it's incumbent upon us as women and as leaders, and we are, all of us are leaders in our own way and in other spaces, but I think it's really important to encourage other women. And, this door has been open for us, and now to bring other women along with us. And so, I love, as Kamala Harris said, I may be the first, but I won't be the last. I think that is the framework, right? So we are coming, and we are bringing more with us. So thank you, Heather, for bringing us together. And I am super excited to work with you, wonderful ladies, and get things done.
Yeah, I love it. I echo everything that both of you all have said. I would love this opportunity to address specifically women of color and Indigenous women, because, I've been thinking a lot about this. I was watching a Beyonce music video today. I won't say the title because it has a curse word in it. But it's the one where she and Jay-Z are in the Louvre, and thinking about why that's so powerful, and recognizing that it's because as women of color and as people of color, we've been told our whole lives that we're not as good as the white culture or Western culture. And I just think that having more women of color in our government, in those halls, in a Capitol that was built on Native land and was built to mimic spaces of Western culture, is so important and so powerful. And I'm sorry, I'm starting to cry, because it's showing future generations that we are just as good, right? And I think it's really easy, I know for me at least, as a woman of color, it's really easy to internalize this narrative that we're not as good, and that there's something lesser than, and there's a reason why we are lesser than, whatever that is. And you have to actively fight back against that. And the more people we have in positions of leadership that are women of color, the more we teach our children, and not just our children, but white children, that that's not true too, right? Because they need to know that we are just as good. And so I would encourage all women of color, people of color, but especially women of color, to get involved, because you are impacting not just yourself, not just your community, but literally the minds of future generations and what those people think are possible. So I'll just leave it there. But really, it's important. It's important beyond your own legacy that we have representation in all of these spaces. And thank you for bringing us together, Heather. Sorry.
No, I'm not crying. You're crying. Wait, I am crying. Wait, what is going on? I feel like I need to be better prepared with the Kleenex. This has now happened to me on both rows. But I agree. I would even take it one step further. We need representation with our LGBTQ population. We need representation with our single moms, with our paycheck to paycheck workers, with, we have to have, I keep saying, inclusive decision-making matters. The number one reason why I ran is because I didn't see people who looked like me making decisions for me. We need to be making decisions with our communities. And that means that we have to be at the table. And so I would mimic all of that. I would say, we see you. We see the value in you. We know how powerful you are. Like, women in general just need to encourage other women to run. We need to support them. We need to lift them up when times get tough. I will say one of the things that the women in my community did very, very well, other than they bake phenomenal. I don't know if y'all have bakers in your community, but like, I have never had so many cookies and brownies and lemon cakes and dessert options like delivered to my house in just this compassion and caring way. But they just, oh, say hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
He's a dinosaur. We love dinosaurs in our house. But that they would check on us, that there are women in your community, our campaign managers, our team, our supporters, but be that person. If nothing else in your community, be the woman who supports other women. We will rise stronger if we rise together. And we need you. Our next generations need you. Hang on a second. Elliot's showing me a really cool trick right now. But rise together. All of us can do it. Thank you all for being here. You are all phenomenal. I am so excited to work with each of you. I'm so excited to see what we can get done and who else joins our table. But again, for all of you out there who are thinking about running, reach out. All of us are pretty accessible. Yeah, you tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I love mom. I love you, mom.
I love you, baby. Real life happening here, right, Nicole? This is like just happens. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you all taking the time. This is great. We'll be coming back and having other conversations, I'm sure. But again, this is Together with Heather every Wednesday night, 7:30 to 8:30 on Native Roots Radio. I'm so excited for our show next week because it is going to be with some of my very, very best friends. I have best friends that live all over this world. One of my good friends from Australia is going to be joining me. So she's actually like setting an alarm in the middle of the night to join because we're going to talk about the importance of managing long distance friendships and relationships with our parents, especially in a pandemic, and why that's so important. So tune in.
Tune in
Next Wednesday for Together with Heather.
With Together with Heather.
Yay! All right, everyone. Thank you. Have a good night. Be safe.
Bye.
Take care of each other. Wear your masks and social distance. Bye.
Bye. Don't put fingers on my